I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. The Catholic versus Catholic debate. The men who would be vice president talk about their faith. Bishop DiMarzio talks about the ballot as he answers your questions. And the Year of Faith, the new evangelization for our world, is launched in Brooklyn by prayer. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Currents Week in Review. And what a week it has been. History being made as we watch. At the Vatican, a new infusion of energy into our faith with the Synod, the Council anniversary, and the Year of Faith all now underway. And here at home, two candidates who want to lead our land, writing their own chapters of America's never-ending story. Last night at the vice presidential debate. Moderator Martha Raddatz.
This debate is indeed historic. We have two Catholic candidates, first time on a stage such as this. And I would like to ask you both to tell me what role your religion has played in your own personal views on abortion. Please talk about how you came to that decision. Talk about how your religion played a part in that. And please, this is such an emotional issue for so many people in this country. Please talk personally about this, if you could. Congressman Ryan.
I don't see how a person can separate their public life from their private life or from their faith. Our faith informs us in everything we do. My faith informs me about how to take care of the vulnerable, about how to make sure that people have a chance in life. Now, you want to ask basically why I'm pro-life? It's not simply because of my Catholic faith. That's a factor, of course. But it's also because of reason and science. You know, I think about 10.5 years ago, my wife Jana and I went to Mercy Hospital in Janesville, where I was born, for our 7-week ultrasound for our firstborn child. And we saw that heartbeat. Our little baby was in the shape of a bean. And to this day, we have nicknamed our firstborn child, Liza, Bean. Now, I believe that life begins at conception. Those are the reasons why I'm pro-life. Now, I understand this is a difficult issue, and I respect people who don't agree with me on this, but the policy of a Romney administration will be to oppose abortion with the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. What troubles me more is how this administration has handled all of these issues. Look at what they're doing through Obamacare with respect to assaulting the religious liberties of this country. They're infringing upon our first freedom, the freedom of religion, by infringing on Catholic charities, Catholic churches, Catholic hospitals. Our church should not have to sue our federal government to maintain their religious liberties. And with respect to abortion, the Democratic Party used to say they want it to be safe, legal, and rare. Now, they support it without restriction and with taxpayer funding. Taxpayer funding in Obamacare, taxpayer funding with foreign aid. The vice president himself went to China and said that he sympathized or wouldn't second-guess their one-child policy of forced abortions and sterilizations. That, to me, is pretty extreme.
Vice President Biden.
My religion defines who I am, and I've been a practicing Catholic my whole life, and it has particularly informed my social doctrine. Catholic social doctrine talks about taking care of those who can't take care of themselves, people who need help. With regard to abortion, I accept my church's position on abortion as what we call de fide doctrine. Life begins at conception. That's the church's judgment. I accept it in my personal life. But I refuse to impose it on equally devout Christians and Muslims and Jews. And I just refuse to impose that on others, unlike my friend here, the congressman. I do not believe that we have a right to tell other people that women, they can't control their body. It's a decision between them and their doctor. In my view, in the Supreme Court, I'm not going to interfere with that. With regard to the assault on the Catholic Church, Let me make it absolutely clear. No religious institution, Catholic or otherwise, including Catholic Social Services, Georgetown Hospital, Mercy Hospital, any hospital, none has to either refer for contraception, none has to pay for contraception, none has to be a vehicle to get contraception in any insurance policy they provide. That is a fact. That is a fact. Now, with regard to the way in which we differ, my friend says that well, I guess he accepts Governor Romney's position now, because in the past he has argued that there's rape and forcible rape. He's argued that in the case of rape or incest, it would be a crime to engage in having an abortion. I just fundamentally disagree with my friend.
Congressman Ryan.
All I'm saying is if you believe that life begins at conception, that therefore doesn't change the definition of life. That's a principle. The policy of a Romney administration is to oppose abortion with exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. Now, I've got to take issue with the Catholic Church and religious liberty.
You have.
If they agree with you, then why would they keep suing you?
Now, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are saying today that the vice president is wrong when he claimed during the debate that many religious institutions are exempt from the government order to provide abortion-causing drugs and other contraceptives to employees. The bishops say the exemption is very narrow and does not cover the hospitals and other institutions mentioned last night. A bit later in this program, Bishop DiMarzio, the Bishop of Brooklyn, will talk to us about Catholics and voting as we go into the deep. At the Vatican this week, we saw the majesty of the church on display as the Holy Father inaugurated the Year of Faith, the same day as the 50th anniversary of the Second Vatican Council was celebrated. Hundreds of cardinals, bishops, and patriarchs participated in St. Peter's Square. Meantime, inside the Vatican, many of the same church leaders also attended the daily meetings of the Synod of Bishops, called to launch a new evangelization of Catholicism around the world. Also in Rome is our Amanda Malewski. She will have a wrap-up of this week's historic church news later in our broadcast. Now, another story this week captured the attention of much of the world: the courage of Pakistani teenager Malala Yousafzai. The Catholic Bishop of Islamabad is now voicing solidarity with her. Malala is fighting for her life in the hospital, rushed there by military helicopter. She was gunned down by Taliban thugs earlier in the week while riding a school bus. The terrorists are calling her an infidel and an obscenity simply because the 14-year-old youngster has been campaigning for the right of girls to attend school in Pakistan. She remains in critical condition, suffering swelling of the brain. More Week in Review after the break. Into the Deep tonight, Bishop DiMarzio answers your questions next. Welcome back to Currents Week in Review. Election news has been a major topic this week, including last night's debate. Now we are hearing that Cardinal Sean O'Malley of Boston is taking to Twitter every day from now until the election on November 6th. He's saying he wants to discuss a variety of topics, especially the proposal to legalize assisted suicide in Massachusetts, which will be on the ballot in November. Meantime, the elections are also the focus as Bishop DiMarzio takes us into the deep, and this time he's answering your questions. As our news director Ed Wilkinson found, you want to discuss politics.
Welcome, Bishop. Nice to see you again.
Good to be here.
We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to play a little game called Ask the Bishop. We invited our readers and our viewers to send in their questions. This way they can ask you what's on their mind. And we have a question here from Frank in Queens Village who wants to talk about the political process and the church's role. And he says here it's never a good idea for the church to tell a person who to vote for. And he wants to know, what is the Catholic Church's role during an election year in politics?
Well, let's define what church is too. Church is not just the bishop and the priest or sisters and religious, but it's everybody. So the church's role in politics is that we have to be involved as citizens to vote for those who follow the teaching of the church. I think that's important. yes, the church must be nonpartisan. We can't tell you who to vote for, but the church's role is to form consciences, to help people understand what right and wrong is, and then to make a decision based on that. Does a particular candidate follow what the church teaches or not? We should, actually bring our Christian Catholic conscience to the voting booth and see if we can match as best we can what the candidate we will vote for with what we believe in. Now, it's not always easy to do, and some candidates are better than others on one thing, and other issues not. But again, these are the judgments we need to make.
Well, following up on that, there's a question here from a fellow named Fritz in Jamaica, and he talks about all of the different issues, and he says that he certainly would like to vote for somebody, he would not vote for somebody who favors abortion or who supports the HHS mandate. He says that at the same time, there are other things to be concerned about, like Social Security and Medicare and caring for the poor, and he feels torn between the two candidates, that some candidates are better on one issue and some are better on another issue. How do we decide, and how do we break that down and find the right candidate for us?
Well, on those particular issues, we know that the one candidate in the one party is clearly pro-abortion and pro-mandate. But the other things are potential problems that, again, explaining that Medicare may not be viable the way it is. So, I mean, I think that would be a judgment I'd make. Say, look, well, I know what the issue is today. I'm not sure what these people are talking about. And you don't always get a clear story as it's filtered through the media. So if I was making the judgment, I'd say, well, I'm gonna bet on what I know and not what I don't know.
Along the same lines there, you could say that something like abortion is objectively wrong. It's wrong in all situations, right? But if you have some of these political issues like Medicare or taking care of the poor, there can be different approaches to that.
Definitely.
And both parties would have a different approach. So you could be a good Catholic and still pick one or the other, right?
Well, again, there's a priority and there's a primacy of issues. We have to go with the life issues that are the most important. Now, life also involves the quality of life, but if you don't have life, there's no quality of life. So I think you've got to look at that objectively to say, look, that's the most important thing that we have to look at. There's a certain primacy in how we look at the life issues. Yes, they all are life issues, but we have to recognize that we can't avoid the concrete life and death issues that are there before us.
Okay, and Frank from Queens Village also has another question. He says that John F. Kennedy once said that most priests are Republicans and most sisters are Democrats. Is there any truth to that?
I've never heard that one before. But I can speak personally. I think, when I was 18, it was 1962, right? So you know that happened that year, right? I know who I voted for then. But I had a chance a couple of years ago to meet with some of the prominent Democratic senators and in my role as chairman of the Domestic Policy Committee, and we were talking to them about some of the issues the Democratic Party supports, like abortion, etc. And I said to them, and it was a confidential meeting, and I won't reveal the names, I said to them, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, the party left me. Because as soon as we see this violent support for abortion on demand, as it has become today, never mind just saying this is the law of the land, this is a right, etc., etc. I cannot be a Democrat, nor am I a Republican. I'm not registered in either party. So I vote as I see the individual candidate. But clearly, it is a shame, and I think the Democratic Convention this last time around showed that there is very little support for a lot of the issues that are clearly Catholic and moral issues.
Okay, well, I think that answers that question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
We go into the deep with Bishop DiMarzio every Friday on Currents. Now our friends in the Diocese of Fort Wayne, South Bend, Indiana are introducing a mobile phone app they are calling a digital Into the Deep. Time to the World Year of Faith, the app provides a daily update of prayers, reflections, and features about faith. It's available for phones and tablets. The Pope, meanwhile, provided messages from the Second Vatican Council to lay people the old-fashioned way in writing. The Holy Father distributed the text to people from various walks of life at the end of yesterday's Mass in St. Peter's Square. The gesture intended to recall how Vatican II enhanced the connection between the Church and the world. The messages were originally composed by Pope Paul VI. The Holy Father's schedule this week has been brutal, yet one observer of the Pope's leadership at the Synod is saying he's working harder than anyone else. Curtis Martin, an American attending the Synod, says it's extraordinary watching a man twice as old as himself working twice as hard. And the Pope is not slowing down. In a little more than a week, he'll canonize 7 new saints. Currents will continue after the break. These are historic days for our church. Currents is on the scene in Rome. We'll have a wrap-up next. We told you how hard Pope Benedict has worked this week. The Synod, the Year of Faith, the anniversary of the Second Vatican Council, all pointing to the new evangelization. Our own Amanda Malewski is in Vatican City keeping up with the Holy Father. Now she provides us with a wrap-up of this week's remarkable events.
In Vatican City, the 13th General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops is officially underway. This year's theme, the new evangelization for the transmission of the Catholic faith.
Pope Benedict opened the assembly with a special Mass, launching the Year of Faith and proclaiming 2 new doctors of the Church, St. John of Avila, Spain, whose devotion to Christ-centered education and priestly formation have inspired countless people, and a German abbess whose mystical faith experiences and writings on health, natural science, and ethics helped shape the culture of the Middle Ages, St. Hildegard. This week also marks the 50th anniversary of the Second Vatican Council, a milestone which the Holy Father noted in his homily. The delegation of bishops have gathered together from all corners of the world to discuss what the late Blessed John Paul II described as the new evangelization. But this Catholic catchphrase holds more meaning today than simply the Church using modern methods of communication and social networking. Pope Benedict emphasized the importance of first pursuing personal inner transformation, remarking, quote, "We cannot speak about the new evangelization without a sincere desire for conversion. The best path to the new evangelization is to let ourselves be reconciled with God and each other." Many Catholics agree.
For me, I think that a big part of kind of building up my faith and helping other people to kind of think about their own faith is I like to go on retreats a lot. And so I think that that really helps me to kind of tap into things and communicate with other people who have the same beliefs as me or who aren't as strong in their beliefs, just because it kind of opens up dialogue.
I think dialogue's one of the most interesting ways to share your faith and to let other people know how you feel and how you think.
I also go on retreats a lot, but my favorite one is the non-denominational. It's not strictly Catholic, Protestant, Lutheran, whatever. It's non-denominational, and we can start dialogues with other girls or other people that have different beliefs, and we can talk about that.
The Holy Father encouraged the faithful to look to the cross and to view the sacrament of marriage not only as an object, but as a subject of the new evangelization. Over the next few weeks, we'll hear more from the Synod of Bishops. One thing is for certain, Pope Benedict is calling for a renewed hope among Catholics in the universal Church. As the Holy Father said in his homily, holiness is not confined by cultural, social, political, or religious barriers. Its language, that of love and truth, is understandable to all people of goodwill, and it draws them to Jesus Christ, the inexhaustible source of new life.
From St. Peter's Square, Vatican City, I'm Amanda Malewski.
Amanda and Annette's team are in Rome preparing very special programs entitled Vatican II Inside the Council to be broadcast right here on NET. We continue with more Currents after the break. The Year of Faith is now underway around the world. At Brooklyn's Cathedral, the faithful gather in prayer. Next. Welcome back. One of the lasting legacies of this momentous week for Catholics will be the Year of Faith, inaugurated for the Universal Church yesterday by the Holy Father. Last evening, Bishop DiMarzio launched the year for our diocese.
We come tonight to, in a solemn way, begin this year of faith. Today is a day of encouragement, and we're trying to set the tone, trying to quote a little bit of the Holy Father's apostolic letter on it, and get things started. We have a large program that is going to be rolled out as we go along, and people will know there are a lot of activities, but we want to encourage people, and that's why it was televised so that everybody in the diocese could see it.
Today is the beginning of an entire year of celebration for the Church. But to be honest, the importance of today is really to allow us to reflect on the greatest gift we have, which is our faith. Faith in the Lord, faith in God our Father, faith in the things that really matter in life. So to gather here with all of these individuals and to share this moment, it's a great experience.
Certainly, Jesus himself is the object of their faith. Then this year of faith gives us an opportunity to concentrate our attention of how we can know Jesus better and how we can share that knowledge with others.
What is most important is a witness of love, of charity. And this is mostly the way for us to announce Jesus, to allow other people to discover Jesus through our deeds of love.
It's about new evangelization. It's about how do we live the faith so that we attract others? How do we share the faith? What does it mean to be in relationship with God and with Jesus in our everyday life? And I think today kicks off a year of a focused attention on that. And as church leaders, I think it's our responsibility to put everything we've got into this year.
We must, with renewed conviction and with renewed confidence of hope, ask the Lord for that gift, that we might change our lives so that we can become better witnesses to the faith.
Thinking that I have to try harder during the year and to promote, faith and in general, and to work on saving one soul at a time.
I look forward to an exciting year, a good year, a year of miracles, of healings, and also of many people coming to know Jesus.
Faith has been something that I've had to hold very close and fight very hard because, when you go through hard times, you got to keep your faith. And there's been tests and trials, and with the youth, we go through different difficulties and different obstacles, so you got to keep our faith, and it's something very hard to do, but you keep strong.
My hope is that people who came here left with a renewed sense of hope, that although there are challenges, and there are many, that in the end it's all about the person of the Lord. And with the Lord we can do anything. Without him we can do nothing. If they walk away with that sense of hope, then this was an evening that's blessed.
Finally, in our week in review, the nicest story. This is Duke. Sunday night, Duke's family, the Brousseaus, were asleep in their Portland, Connecticut home. Duke, who was adopted a few years back, jumps onto the bed and started shaking violently. Jenna Brousseau and her husband wake up. They just knew something was not right. Jenna ran to the nursery. Their 9-week-old daughter was not breathing. Her husband called 911. Paramedics revived the baby and saved the child's life, and Jenna knows who to thank.
He's the perfect dog. He was meant to be ours, and meant to be hers. I tell him all the time, you were born in Mommy's heart. And just because he was so meant to be ours. He's a good boy.
Jenna says she hopes this story will inspire others to adopt dogs in need, just as they did with Duke. Well, thank you for joining us. Now, please remember, in tonight's edition of Into the Deep, Bishop DiMarzio answered your questions. We're going to do that again. Please email your questions for the bishop to us. The address is currentsny@desalesmedia.org. We may use your question on an upcoming broadcast. Now we leave you with more remarkable scenes from this week at St. Peter's Square. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.